So yeah, decorating your life, what Barbara was talking about. We can talk a little bit about that today. And, I'm all into decorating our lives with all kinds of wonderful things, like I was talking about in the affirmation card. But there's one thing that we don't have to look for, and that's what I'm going to, or add to, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So first, I want to talk about a German tradition that I found out. And that is that adults hang a pickle. Say what? in the Christmas tree, and the first child to find it gets it. Did you do that? Somebody do that? Oh,
I never heard that one.
And the first child to find it, and probably not rip down the tree, gets an extra little prize. Sort of like maybe they get Hanukkah gelt, which is nice, because that's a little chocolate candy treat. So I found that as a very unique ornament to have, because I'm talking about the tinsel and the ornaments today. I also found out that the Ukrainians, which have been in the news lately, they do a thing where they put spider webs, follow me, in their Christmas trees. That's exactly, I heard a couple people go, huh? That's exactly what I thought, huh? So I found the story about this. It's the story of the spider and the Christmas tree. So there once was a widow who lived in a cramped old hut, and she lived with her 3 children. Now, outside their home was a tall pine tree, and from that tree, of course, dropped pine cones. And the kids took one and planted it, did what they needed to do to plant it into the soil so they could get their own special tree for Christmas. Now, they didn't do that like a couple of weeks before Christmas. That takes sometimes up to a year, depending on the pine tree, to get any sort of heights to it. But it's a story, it's a folk tale. The children were excited about the prospect of having a Christmas tree, so they tended to it, ensuring that it would continue to grow and be strong and become tall enough to be a Christmas tree the next time it came around. Now, unfortunately, the family was very poor and couldn't afford to decorate the tree with ornaments. And so on Christmas Eve, the widow and her children went to bed knowing that they would have a Christmas tree, but it would be very bare for Christmas morning. Then, the spiders in the hut that they lived in heard the sobs of the children and the sad cries, and decided that they would not leave the Christmas tree bare. So the spiders created beautiful webs in the Christmas tree, decorating it with elegant and beautiful silky patterns. When the children woke up early on Christmas morning, they were jumping for excitement. They went over and they woke up their mom and said, Mom, Mother, you have to come see the Christmas tree. It's so beautiful. And she got up and looked and was amazed at what had happened overnight. And one of the children went over to the window and pulled back the drapes and opened up the window, and the rays of the sun shone in on the tree, and the webs turned into glittering silver and gold colors, making the Christmas tree magically dazzle, sparkle, and twinkle. And from that day forward, the widow never felt poor. Instead, she was always grateful for all the wonderful gifts she knew and could see she had already had in life. Isn't that sweet? Mm. Except for that spider infestation she seems to have. But, you know, that's another story. So, tinsel. That brings me to tinsel, because that whole story is partially about tinsel. Tinsel was first used back in Germany in 1610. Now, they made it from shredded silver, which would probably be a little pricey nowadays, unless you invest in silver. And, of course, that enhanced the flickering of the candles in the tree. You'll remember, I think I spoke about it last night, and you'll hear about it again next week. People originally used to put actual candles on the tree until we started having fire marshals. But anyway, it enhanced from the flickering of the candles on the tree, you know, made it all shiny and sparkly. And it represents the starry night during the nativity scene in the Christmas story. And it comes from the old French word called tinsel, which means sparkle. So tinsel actually means sparkle. So that brings me to my point. What do we need to do to sparkle in life? And my answer is nothing. You can add stuff all you want, but you don't need it. Thomas Troward said, we must make a proper identification of ourselves, because that's where our sparkle comes from. In this thing called you, which I know the Altmans like and I love as well, Dr. Holmes said, you are already a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual laws and having a human experience. I'm not sure if you got that from Teilhard, the French philosopher. Yeah. Of course, I knew you were from. But it says a similar thing. So, what does that mean? That means we're already sparkling. We don't have to add anything. We don't have to have jewelry. We don't have to even add ideas, really, in a way, because we are born sparkling. We are one with life. We're here to thrive and be happy. That's what Thomas Troward basically said. We're here to be happy, period. Now, happiness, you know, you get to decide what the definition of that is, but we don't need any tinsel or any ornaments of any kind. We're all here. We're all here revealing this, and that's all we need to know. Boom. Now, of course, you come here not only to hang out with each other and commune and listen to great music and be reminded every week of who and what you are. You come here to sometimes find out how. How do I do this? Now, I mean different from how the universe deals with what you decide you want to bring into your life. But what do you do? What do we do? Well, here's a bunch of suggestions, some of which, maybe most of which, you've already heard, but they really hit the mark. Joseph Campbell, he said, follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where there were only walls. That's nice. Steve Jobs said, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. Don't know who said that, but follow your passion and the money will follow. There's a Chinese proverb that says, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. John Burroughs said, leap and the net will appear. Which reminds me of what Shirley MacLaine said, go out on a limb. So, there's the answer. Find your passion, follow your bliss, and then leap. Take a jump. Jump. Now, I want to remind you what Ralph Waldo Emerson said in his essay, Self-Reliance. He said this, you're going to love this. It's provocative, but listen carefully. To believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all mankind, all humankind, that is genius. Speak your latent conviction, and it shall be the universal sense. For the inmost in due time becomes the outmost. Now, the great thing about that historically, because in the 1830s or so, when he started writing, by the time that essay came out, within another 10 years from that, it was big-time Calvinistic Christianity, and you didn't have any power. We were worms of the dust even as we were alive. And then this guy comes along and says, no. Don't you read your Bible? Don't you read your Greek? Don't you read your Plotinus? Well, especially in those days when they all had to read the classical stuff, didn't you read all that philosophy? What are you talking about? The power is within you, and if you want something out here, it has to start in here first. And you got to be brave and ignore all the stuff that's being yelled at you around you. He tells us that our personal intuition, what we feel in the gut, is the true wisdom. That's very provocative, even today. Now, we have to tell the difference between is our little ego talking to us and say, do this because everybody's, victim-y, in a victim-y way, do this and ignore that because they don't know what they're talking about because they're all trying to hurt me. That's a whole different thing than going, you know what? I know the truth. I feel the truth. I feel all this. I know all this is going on. So all this other junk that I'm hearing around the world, they're downright lies. The power's within me. And I know things are going on around me, but I know also that when I sit tight and I sit down and I get centered, that power comes through me, and when that power comes through me intentionally, all this stuff starts changing for the better in my life. And we don't rely on other people's ideas, which are cowardly and lazy when we do that. Yeah, in NLP, you hear about modeling people that are successful, but you're modeling their success. You're modeling the way that they do or have perspective in their relationships, in their marriage, or whatever you want to call it. What they do in their career. I read once when Tony Robbins goes to like a basketball player or something and coaches them. He don't know. I mean, I think he enjoys basketball, but he certainly doesn't know the physicalities and the mechanics physically of being a basketball player. But he knows a good basketball player has something going on in their head and their heart, and that's what he touches, and that's what he goes after. So that they become in a state. They have a state of mind and a state of being, and that makes them better basketball players, or in any part of life. And that's what we do. That's what we teach in this philosophy. You want to have success in whatever it is, your job, your creativity, your relationship, your retirement, whatever, it's a perspective that you have here. And if you allow yourself too often to listen to the noise out there, you'll start having a lazy life and not moving forward. Because it's just noise. It's just noise. We're each born with a genius, and it's there. And if you don't even feel like you have that genius, that's when you really sit down and allow yourself, because then the universe will talk to you and remind you of the genius and bring into your mind and then into your experience exactly what it is you need to know. You know what? I need to not have that doctor anymore. I know I've been with them for X years and maybe they've done some good work for me, but it's not happening anymore. Same with the therapist, same with my job. I'm not telling you to quit your jobs. Look for a new one first. Sometimes same with your friends. Haven't we all had friends, even for a long time, where maybe we don't stop seeing them or stop being their friend, but it's not as often anymore because they're in a different place than we are. And we don't want to stay, quote unquote, back or behind because they are. And if they're not going forward with us, then they become a different sort of friend. And that's okay. It's the use of that genius that I'm talking about in the inward work that produces magnificent results in the outward. Again, this thing called you, Ernest Holmes said, what the law does for you must do through you. So I ask you, are you using your will or your willpower? My friends who have gone through some of the training that I've gone through, knows that that's a big class in itself. What's the difference between will and willpower? Well, willpower has a pushing, coercing sort of thing. I'm using my willpower. I'm bigger and stronger, and I'm forcing it. Well, when you force it, you get part of that in the coloring of the experience. There's a force there. And a force is us not believing it's going to happen. You know what I mean? That's willpower. And it comes from fear. Now, the law doesn't need pushing. The law doesn't need you to dress up physically. The law doesn't care how much junk you got on your fingers and wrists and around you, that I have, around you, or what color sweater you're wearing. The law doesn't care about any of that. No ornaments on the outside or tinsel on the outside is required. Now, will versus willpower. Will is a choice. I will this to be. I have a choice. I have volition. I have an investment in mind, body, spirit, heart. I'm open to intuition and imagination coming through me. That is faith and love. That puts fear away. Because faith and love overpowers fear every time. So, let me go through those three things I was talking about. The first one is find your passion. Henry David Thoreau said, know your own bone. Know your own bone. Gnaw at it. Bury it. Unearth it. And gnaw it still again. Over and over. So, in the gnawing, burying, unearthing, and then re-gnawing, we study. We learn, we practice, we gain confidence in the joy of the journey. When we think the journey is going to be taxing, it makes everything taxing. You know, our perspective on what's going on in our lives and seemingly how long the universe is taking to bring something into your life, that perspective starts coloring everything. And because the law is just going to go, oh, you want that now? Okay, great. And goes and gets that. For those of you who were here last week when I was talking about that dream I had, or I've heard this story about the dream I have, where the law has everything in some big pile, in some huge warehouse somewhere in the universe, of everything that you could possibly require or desire into your life, and it's just waiting. Oh, you want that? Okay, that's that. Oh, you want it that way? Oh. Okay, well, I'll deliver it upside down, because that's what you want. It comes from your perspective. We have to start in a perspective that brings our thoughts and feelings into line with love and knowing versus fear. B, follow your bliss. So, what is your bliss? So, you want to take this confidence and this knowledge of your passion, whatever you've decided that passion is. And I'm not talking about the one big passion in your life, whatever that is. Helping people who need healing, entertaining people and informing them, making sure numbers are correct and an organization runs efficiently. Whatever it is your passion. I don't mean just that one. Because every time we want something new in our lives, it could be a car, it could be peace on earth, which we're going to talk about a lot in this season. That's the season of talking about peace on earth. We should actually talk about it every day, but a lot this time, or in the Miss America pageant too. Whatever it is, whether it's an idea or an actual thing, we have to have a passion for it. It's not like buying gum. We want a passion for it. So when we have the confidence and the knowledge of what that passion is, we learn to apply these ideas. So if you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while waiting for you, and the life that you ought to be living is the one you are living. When you can see that, you begin to meet people who are in your field of bliss, and they open doors for you. I say follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you didn't know they were going to be, says Joseph Campbell. Follow your bliss. Where's that going? I don't have to necessarily make a full-time living following my bliss. There was a time where I was looking to be a spiritual leader at any place throughout the country. And I would go around and I would look at places, and a few I applied to. It's more of an audition than an application, actually. And, you know, there's all kinds of things that I looked at, you know, where it was. Does Patty and I want to live there for, you know, the next 10 years? And you know, the compensation, and one of the big ones was, is there a Trader Joe's near the center? That was in there. But I forgot my point. But I was following my bliss. I'll find it again. I lost it in all the jokes. Put yourself on a contract that has been their way waiting for you. When you see that, you can begin to meet people that are in your field of bliss, and they open doors to you. I say follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and the doors were open where you didn't know they were going to be. So doors started to open. That's what I was trying to talk about. I was following my bliss, and I realized that in following my bliss, this is the point, it didn't mean I had to go do that. It didn't mean that I had to go somewhere else. And it didn't mean that I would lose the ability to do other things I love, which is performing, which is bringing a character to life in some sort of play. Because I thought, I don't need to live in Los Angeles to do that. And I'm at the point, because of the bliss I find doing this work, that I don't need that anymore as a full-time thing in my life. And if I get that itch, so to speak, I can go play somewhere, anywhere in the country. It doesn't have to be a TV show, a movie, in New York on some big stage with a million people. It could be in a lovely little space like this, doing my thing for a few weeks. That's still following my bliss in that part of my life. Because there came a point where this was more important than that. That was the big point. But it is then, when you start following your bliss, that you can start taking that leap. So we get to the third part, the leap. Now, you may encounter dragons. Dragons that you have put into the back of your mind somewhere, or that you've allowed to stay in the back of your mind somewhere, if you've accepted some stupid stuff that people said to you, maybe even by thinking they're doing it out of love, i.e. parents. And they're living in the darkest caverns of your mind, and they're going to pop up. And all my therapists or of sorts know that happens, because we put them away for a while. We put those dragons away for a while. And sometimes they come out, especially when we're ready to take a leap. The dragons come, and whoever's voice that is, your third grade teacher or whatever, that voice comes out, you know, and says, no, you can't do that. That's not in your your toolbox, etc. So when that happens, you know, that's something in your background, in your old thoughts that want to keep you small and want to keep you behind. But what happens when we start having a new perspective on life, those dragons, even though they may show up, they don't last as long. They may knock on your door. So what? Yeah, hello. Oh, hi. Have a good day. You can acknowledge them. You can acknowledge those fears that show up, especially when you want to take big leaps. Like, I'm going to change my job, but I also have car payment and a big house and a family, or grandchildren that I'm helping out, or whatever it is that's going on in your life. You know, that could be a scary thing, and that's okay. It's what you do with that scary thing. Are you following your bliss and allowing Spirit to inform you so you can take the next step? See, I'm not going to tell you what the next step is. It's the allowing yourself to reveal that and vibrate as that where you're going to bust through by getting informed. But you got to get quiet. You got to, the goals are going to stay there. They're going to be around. You're not going to lose them, but you got to be quiet so you can listen and let intelligence, divine intelligence, inform you. The law always says yes. It's always there. It's always waiting for you. In The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes says it is a beautiful and true thought to realize that every person stands in the shadow of a mighty mind, a pure intelligence, and a divine givingness. The farmer has seen the heavenly host in the fields. Yeah, the farmer can go out there and do his or her thing, the watering, the planting, the nutrients, but the earth's going to only do so much for you. You got to know that it's going to happen. You got to have the passion to get up at whatever they do, 3 or 4 a.m. to do that work. If you don't have the passion for it, even if some days are rough, you're going to burn out. You're going to start stepping into addictions. And that's not just farmers. Any of us can do that. The child has frolicked with it at play. The mother has clasped it to her breast, and the fond lover has seen it in the eyes of their beloved. We look too far away for reality. And in this, he spelled reality with a capital R. Not reality, the facts. There's a microphone, here's a music stand, here's a beautiful rug, by the way. Everybody notice the beautiful rug? That is a gift from the Altmans, the Reverend Altmans. So I want you to notice that every week. It's a beautiful rug. It's not in the facts, which is a small reality. It's in the R, big R reality, which is here, which is inside. You're the farmer, we're the child, we're the lover. Our reality must lie in the consciousness and power of that which is within us, the divine self. I'm going to read you another Rumi quote. I know there was one in the guided meditation, but I love this. I love some Rumi, yes? Rumi. You are born with potential, he says. You were born with goodness and trust. You were born with ideals and dreams. You were born with greatness. You were born with wings. You are not meant for crawling, so don't. You have wings. Learn to use them and fly. No special sparkle is required. No ornamentation in mind, heart, or outside is required. You don't have to dress up. You just have to show up. So let's show up, be our own tinsel, be our own ornaments, be our own tree, stand tall, and allow divine mind to speak through us, as us, and with us. Thank you so much. Namaste.